All right, let's dive into something I think we all wish we were better at. Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to read people like a book?
Well, today's deep dive is all about giving you just that power.
We're cracking open Patrick King's Read People Like a Book, a guide to understanding those around us, even when they aren't saying a word.
We're talking body language, deciphering motivations, and getting a glimpse into personality types. It's all here.
So by the end of this, we'll all be walking lie detectors.
Okay, maybe not quite lie detectors, but you'll definitely walk away with a toolkit to navigate social situations with more confidence.
More confidence and insight. Now, tell me about this idea of context that King keeps bringing up.
Ah, yes. Context is key. Just like a single word can mean different things in different sentences, a gesture can change its meaning depending on the person and the situation.
So if I see someone with their arms crossed, it doesn't automatically mean they're closed off.
Exactly. It could mean they're cold, trying to get comfortable, or even just really focused on what you're saying. You have to look at the whole picture.
So how do we avoid jumping to the wrong conclusions based on one single cue?
King talks about establishing a baseline for each individual. How do they typically act? What's their normal posture, their usual tone of voice? Once you know they're normal, you can spot the deviations that might signal something's up.
So if my friend who's usually super chatty suddenly clams up, I know something might be wrong. Whereas for someone who's naturally quiet, that might be completely normal.
You got it. Now let's get into what's driving those actions. Motivation.
This is what I'm talking about. Give me the secrets to understanding why people do what they do.
Well, for starters, there's the pleasure principle. We're all wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. It's pretty basic, really.
Like when you know you shouldn't have that extra slice of cake, but you do it anyway because it tastes so good.
Exactly, but it goes beyond those simple things.
Right.
Think about someone who's always fishing for compliments.
Oh, I know a few people like that.
Maybe they have a need to boost their self-esteem, which is higher up on Maslow's hierarchy.
Ah, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the pyramid of human needs.
Right. You've got the basic survival needs at the bottom, and then things like love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization at the top.
Knowing where someone is on that pyramid can help us understand their actions better.
Absolutely. Someone constantly volunteering for high-profile projects might be driven by a desire for recognition and achievement, aiming for that esteem level.
It gives us a framework to understand their motivations.
Exactly. Now, another thing that King dives into is the idea of defense mechanisms. It's the ego's way of protecting itself, often unconsciously.
Those sneaky little tricks our minds play on us.
Think about someone who always blames others for their mistakes. That could be projection, avoiding taking responsibility, and protecting their ego.
So instead of admitting they messed up, their mind shifts the blame.
Exactly.
I never thought of it like that. This is fascinating stuff. So we've covered context, baselines, motivation, and even those sneaky defense mechanisms. What else can help us read people like a book?
Well, let's talk about nonverbal communication, starting with facial expressions.
Especially those micro-expressions. Those tiny, fleeting flashes of emotion that can reveal someone's true feelings, even if they're trying to hide them.
Oh, yeah. Microexpressions are like hidden treasures for a keen observer.
Tell me more about that.
Well, they happen in a fraction of a second.
Wow.
Totally involuntary, hard to control. Imagine someone forcing a smile, but their brows furrow for just a moment.
A micro-expression of sadness peeking through.
You got it.
Their words say, I'm fine, but their face tells a different story.
Exactly. And then you have macro expressions, those full-blown emotions we all recognize.
The big, genuine smile or look of pure terror.
Yeah. Macro expressions are easier to control and might not be as revealing of someone's true feelings.
So micro-expressions.
Yeah.
Quick, involuntary, and the truth comes out?
Yeah.
Macro-expressions. Slower, more deliberate, potentially part of a carefully crafted act.
You got it.
Got it. Okay. But what about body language?
Oh, that's a whole other world.
It's so hard to interpret sometimes.
One key thing to remember is that how much space someone takes up often reflects how comfortable they feel.
Like someone who's relaxed and confident might lean back in their chair with their arms spread out.
Right.
But someone who's nervous might hunch over and make themselves smaller.
Exactly. Fidgeting, crossed arms, hunching their shoulders. Those could all be signs of discomfort or insecurity.
But again, context is everything, right?
Always. What's normal for one person might be a sign of stress for another. That's why those individual baselines are so important.
We're like detectives, looking for clusters of behavior, facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and comparing it to their baseline to understand what's really going on.
You're catching on fast. It's also important to watch for any inconsistencies.
Okay, like if their body language doesn't match their words,
Right.
saying yes while shaking their head no.
Exactly. Those mixed signals can be very revealing.
This is so cool. It's like learning to decode a secret language.
Yeah.
Are there other tools that can help us on this quest to become master people readers?
You bet. Personality tests can actually be really useful here.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm always skeptical of those things.
We're not talking about putting people into boxes or taking them as gospel,
Okay, that's good.
but they can be helpful frameworks for understanding the general patterns and tendencies that shape people's behavior.
Okay, so tell me more about how these tests can help us decode people's personalities. So we're not using these tests to put people in a box, but rather to understand their natural inclinations.
Right. Think of them as lenses to view people through. One popular framework is the Big Five.
The Big Five.
Yeah, it's often remembered by the acronym OCEAN.
Ocean. Okay, break that down for me. What are these 5 core traits?
So you've got openness to experience how adventurous and curious someone is.
Got it.
People high in openness love trying new things, while those low in it might prefer routine.
Makes sense. What's next?
Conscientiousness. This is all about how organized and responsible a person is.
My friend who color codes her calendar and is never late. Definitely high in conscientiousness.
Probably. Then there's extroversion and introversion.
The classic personality types.
Extroverts get energy from social interaction, while introverts need their alone time to recharge.
We all know a few of each.
Right.
Okay, what else is in ocean?
Agreeableness.
Okay.
This is how warm, compassionate, and cooperative someone is.
And last but not least,
Neuroticism.
neuroticism.
This one reflects how prone someone is to anxiety and negative emotions.
So it's like a spectrum, right? You're not just one or the other.
Exactly. Everyone falls somewhere along each trait. Understanding these tendencies can really help you navigate interactions.
It's like having a secret decoder for human behavior. Now, King also talks about lie detection, which I find super intriguing.
It's fascinating for sure, but it's not about finding that one telltale sign like Pinocchio's nose.
Right?
It's about looking for inconsistencies. Yeah, between their words, their body language, and their usual behavior.
So if someone who usually makes direct eye contact suddenly avoids my gaze while telling a story, that could be a red flag.
Could be, especially if there are other changes too, fidgeting, hesitant speech, or a different tone of voice.
So we're looking for a whole bunch of clues, not just one.
Right. King talks about using conversation itself as a tool for lie detection.
Okay, how do we do that?
Think of it like a gentle probe. Ask open-ended questions that encourage them to elaborate.
Tell me more about.
Exactly. Or how did you feel when, those kinds of things.
And as they answer, we're not just listening to their words, but also paying attention to how they say it.
Right. Watch for any hesitations, contradictions, or attempts to change the subject.
So if they get defensive or suddenly clam up, that could be a sign.
It could be.
King also suggests throwing in an unexpected question. Why is that effective?
Well, it increases their cognitive load. Lying takes effort. They're managing their story, trying to appear truthful. Adding a surprise element can throw them off balance.
It's like overloading their mental circuits,
Yeah.
making it harder to keep up the act.
Exactly. That's when you might see those telltale signs.
Like what?
Things like reduced emotional expression, blinking more, dilated pupils, or speech disturbances.
Wow.
Those can all be signs that someone is struggling to maintain the lie.
This is like a master class in deception detection.
It is, but it's important to remember not to let our biases get in the way.
Right, our own preconceived notions.
If you go into an interaction assuming someone is lying, you're more likely to see everything through that lens, even if they're being completely truthful.
That makes sense. We need to be objective and open-minded.
Yeah.
Okay, before we move on, there's this concept King talks about that I want to explore. Thin slicing.
Slicing.
What exactly is that?
It's that ability we have to make snap judgments about people based on very limited information.
First impressions. We all do it, but are those snap judgments accurate?
You might be surprised. Thin slicing can be very accurate, especially when it comes to judging personality traits.
Really? So our gut feeling about someone, whether we feel like we'll get along with them or not, there's some truth to that.
Often, yeah.
Wow.
It's not always perfect, but it often contains a grain of truth. The key is to be aware of those initial impressions and then see if your observations support them.
Trust your gut, but verify.
Exactly.
Now, King says thin slicing isn't just limited to face-to-face interactions.
Right.
He talks about how much we reveal about ourselves online.
Think about it, social media, emails, even our choice of profile pictures, it's
Yeah.
all data for someone who knows what to look for.
It's like being a digital detective.
Okay.
You can learn so much about someone by looking at their online presence.
Exactly. Say you're thinking of collaborating with someone.
Okay.
You can check out their LinkedIn profile, their website, their Twitter feed, see what their communication style is like. What are they interested in? What have they accomplished?
I've definitely done that before.
Yeah. You can get a sense of their personality, like if they use a lot of humor in their posts, it might suggest they're outgoing. If they share a lot of articles about environmental issues, they might be passionate about that cause.
And it's not just what they share, but how they share it too.
Right.
Are their posts long and thoughtful or short and to the point?
Yep.
Do they engage in respectful debates or resort to personal attacks? All those details paint a picture.
Absolutely.
It's like learning to read between the lines, but for their online persona.
Exactly. And one final tool King suggests is the power of hypothetical questions.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They can be surprisingly revealing because they allow you to bypass those defense mechanisms and tap into someone's true desires and motivations.
I see. Because it's not like they're being judged or put on the spot. It's just exploring possibilities.
Exactly. Instead of asking, what are your career goals? You could ask, if you could wave a magic wand and have any job in the world, what would it be?
Oh, I like that. It gets to the heart of what they really want.
Or instead of asking about their biggest fear, you could ask, if you could overcome any obstacle, what would it be?
These questions tap into their deepest aspirations.
They do.
I love it. Well, this has been an incredible journey through the key principles of reading people like a book.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground. It really has been a fascinating exploration of human nature. But now comes the fun part, actually applying these concepts in our own lives.
Right. It's one thing to understand the theory, but how do we put this into practice? How do we actually become better people readers?
Well, it all starts with awareness. We need to train ourselves to become more attuned to those subtle cues people are sending.
So put away the distractions and really focus on the person we're interacting with.
Exactly. Make eye contact. Really listen, not just to their words, but to the way they say things. And pay attention to their body language. Those nonverbal signals often speak volumes.
So even a small change in their posture or eye contact can be significant.
Right. It's about noticing those subtle shifts from their baseline behavior. And if you're unsure about something, don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions.
Like, hey, I'm sensing something here. Can you help me understand?
Exactly. You're not accusing or jumping to conclusions. You're just trying to get a clearer picture.
This all sounds great, but I have to admit, it feels a little overwhelming.
I get it.
Do I have to analyze every interaction like I'm Sherlock Holmes?
Oh,
Yeah, okay, good.
you don't have to overthink it. The key is to practice. The more you observe, the more attuned you'll become to those subtle cues. It becomes almost intuitive.
Well, it's like learning a language. At first, it's a lot of effort, but eventually becomes second nature.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, they feel better.
And just like learning anything new, you're going to make mistakes along the way. You'll misinterpret things.
I'm sure I will.
But that's okay. It's all part of the learning process.
Embrace the awkwardness.
Exactly. Use those moments as opportunities to refine your skills. Another crucial thing is to be aware of your own biases.
Right, we all have preconceived notions about people.
We do.
So it's important to make sure those biases aren't clouding our judgment.
Absolutely. If you find yourself making a snap judgment about someone, take a step back and ask yourself, is this based on actual evidence, or am I letting my biases get in the way?
It's about being as objective as possible.
Right.
Understanding that our own experiences shape how we see the world. I also want to touch on something that King emphasizes throughout his book, the importance of using this knowledge ethically.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about manipulating or exploiting others.
Right.
It's about building genuine connections and navigating social situations with more empathy.
It's about understanding, not control.
Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one piece of advice you would give to our listeners who want to become better people readers?
I'd say start by practicing. Choose someone you interact with regularly and really observe them over the next week. Okay. Pay attention to their nonverbal cues, their communication style, their patterns of behavior. See what you can learn.
It could be something small like noticing they always wrinkle their nose when they're thinking hard,
Or it could be a bigger realization like, oh, they're actually much more introverted than I thought.
and then use those insights to connect with them on a deeper level.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
It is.
Building stronger, more authentic relationships.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
Likewise.
And remember, this journey of understanding people never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to discover.
So keep observing, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the human experience. We'll see you next time for another fascinating deep dive.